Sir, images from the search area in Iceland reveal some resurfaced materials.
Go on.
We assess an 80% probability it's the object we're looking for.
Initiate phase 1.
These people, they'll kill both of you.
Rýmer.
Já, hvað ertu?
Ég? Rétt austan við Heimörk.
Þú ert upp á Vatnajökli. Þú bauðst mér ekki einu sinni með.
Það er alltaf vinnan, það ekki? Það er alltaf törn.
Það er bara að láta það vita að þú værir fucking fáti. Ok.
Þetta er styrla.
Listen very carefully, Kristin. We have your brother.
Hvað er að sjá þig, mannskja? Komdu inn. Elli, sendi mér þetta.
Kristin!
What's the update?
Initial search reveals no trace of Napoleon.
I want to know everything about Kristin, Johanna's daughter, and this professor.
What can you tell me about a Nazi airplane crashing into Vatnajökull?
We're talking about Operation Napoleon, a secret that could change the course of history.
My father made me promise never to look for that plane. Said it would only bring death.
I'm not fucking around. If there's something here, my men will find it.
Lögreglan lýsir eftir Kristínu Jóhannesdóttur.
She has amassed a large amount of information on the wreck.
Keep him alive until we find the woman.
Okay, wait. Was Hitler on board the plane?
Maybe.
We began finding things.
A group of people living in the shadows.
We're not leaving without Napoleon.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cherry the Geek TV. I'm Joe Vanourney. Operation Napoleon is a brand new conspiracy thriller coming out in theaters and video on demand on August 11th. And today we are joined by the director of Operation Napoleon, Óskar Thór Axelsson. Óskar, welcome to Cherry the Geek TV.
Thank you so much.
Before we start, describe if somebody was coming up to you and saying, oh, you have a new movie coming out, what's it about? Give me the quick 30-second summary. How do you describe the film?
A normal person, an everyman person gets involved with conspiracy theory to hide the secret that a Nazi airplane that's just resurfaced on a glacier in Iceland is holding. How's that?
Very good. I was wondering, the film's based on a novel from 1999, right? That very famous novel in Iceland. You were familiar with that novel from the very beginning, yes?
Yeah, I read the novel when it came out, and it blew me away at the time. And I was super excited about it. I had never read anything like that that's set in Iceland. And this is before I went to film school and became a filmmaker, really. So, but I still got the courage to contact the publisher and to ask if the rights are available and if I could do it. But the rights were taken at the time, so I was like, all right, that's that. And then, about 20 years later, a new producer had the rights and had been developing it for a while, and brought the project to me, so that was I remember getting the question, do you know this book? Is this something you might be interested in? And I'm like, hell yeah, I know this book. I have very fond memories of it. So yeah, so definitely, yeah, it's very exciting.
So talk to me about developing that book. It was already developed when the script was brought to you. Did you meet with the novelist and kind of talk over your ideas with him beforehand? Has he seen the film since? Is he happy with it?
Yeah, definitely. He no, I mean, before I committed to it, I met with him, you know, and I wanted to get his kind of. I mean, he's a very well-known personality in Iceland. He's also very secretive. He doesn't do interviews or anything like this. But he used to be a film critic and write about. So when I was growing up, I would write his articles about movies, you know. So I know I definitely wanted to get his approval of my vision for the movie, and I did get that, and we were basically on the same page. I mean, he told me that he felt that this was his Alistair MacLean novel, you know, and that means a certain type of movie, and that's definitely what I felt, you know, when I read it. So so we were on the same page with that, and then I asked him if he would be willing to be kind of involved as we developed it further. I mean, I came on board when we already had a script. We still, you know, rewrote it a bit, and I wanted to have him involved in that. And also when I was, you know, shooting it, I invited him to the set, and when I was editing, I would show him cuts, you know, and mainly just to have a great film mind, you know, take a look and bring his opinion to the table. And he definitely approved.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say it's his Alistair MacLean novel, because it does have a kind of a Force 10 from Navarone, Ice Station Zebra kind of feel to it. So that's very interesting. I'm curious about the locations for the film. There's a good chunk of the movie, almost half the movie shot takes place on a glacier. I'm curious, when you're shooting on a location like that, what are the challenges? How far are you from civilization? How does it work getting equipment there? What's the weather, the temperatures like? What's the weather like? Talk to me about the challenges of shooting in an isolated place.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about it being half the movie takes place, and that's sort of what it feels like. But in reality, we probably shot I think 6 or 7 days on the glacier, you know, of like a 40-day schedule, you know. But and those were truly challenging days, because yeah, you're right. You're on the glacier and you're open to the elements, and the weather can change, you know, like that. And it can be a beautiful day when you get up there, and it turns into a storm in an hour. And the logistics of going there is also very difficult, because you spend every day, even though you're in a hotel close to the glacier, you're still spending 2 hours on your way up and 2 hours on your way down, you know. So that's 4 hours of your day. And then you just move so slowly. So there's everything against you, really, on a glacier. But it's also very inspiring and awesome to be on a glacier. You know, we prepared it really, really well, and had a second unit to do some of the sequences. And then, you know, when you're there, you just, you know, everybody is super excited and everybody's very well prepared, and it has like a magical feeling, really. So it ends up being, even though it's so tough, it ends up being very rewarding of an experience, and that's something you always remember. And I'm glad that that's also what people kind of take out of it, you know, because it's unique for us that we're doing it, and it's unique to the movie, I think, you know.
Let's talk about your amazing cast, led by Iain Glen. Most of the U.S. audience would probably know him best from his role on Game of Thrones. He's the villain here, but you also have Vivian, Olafsdottir. I hope I say her name right, Olafsdottir, as Kristin, Jack Fox as Steve. Talk about assembling this cast, and what did you see in them and their performances?
When I was assembling the cast, what was important for me was to kind of find people that you know, fit what the characters are in the book, you know, and how I see it. It's of course personal, you know, when you're reading a book. So that's one thing. And then I wanted to get good collaborators, really, you know, because I knew you're going to be filming in some really, really intense environments. It's going to be difficult and tricky, you know. We have to improvise, you know, we have to be open, and I wanted to make sure that the actors were on board with that, and they were that they would be able to bring their heart to the table, and they would be able to add to the characters and sort of help each other out. So I definitely, that was a hugely important thing when I was interviewing the actors before hiring them, really, to get them on board with that idea, and it's also, and it becomes a more rewarding experience actually when you approach it that way, when you give the actors the freedom to express themselves, and have an adventure,
Some directors like to focus more on their relationship with directing the actors, right? Other directors are more interested in setting up technical shots, setting the camera certain ways, doing a lot of things, movement with the cameras. Where do you fall? Like, if you were doing some self-analysis here, where do you place yourself on that spectrum?
That's an interesting question. I did a lot of cinematography actually, so that's kind of my home turf is the visuals, and probably what I start thinking about first when I read a script or a book or whatever. However, I also become very involved with working with the actors, and actually, even though I used to be a cinematographer and have that kind of background, I very much put a lot of faith into the DP that I work with each time, and I definitely want them to express themselves, and I don't want to get in their way, and I become super focused on the actors. So I guess it comes out of that being the biggest challenge, I guess, but it has sort of evolved into being my favorite thing about making films, to sort of work with the actors and encourage them and give them space to express themselves. That's my favorite thing, really.
When you were making this film, what was the biggest surprise that you found for yourself? What may be something that you thought was going to be very difficult going in that ended up being very easy, or maybe something you thought was going to be very easy and then that ended up being like a huge challenge?
Yeah, well, let me think. I think there's a sequence that takes place in a cave. Originally, we were going to shoot it on the glacier because the location on the glacier we found because there was an ice cave that had just been discovered. There was a lake, and the lake was like disappeared into the glacier, and underneath it was this amazing cave. So we had planned that to shoot there. And then when it came to shooting, the cave had disappeared. It's what happens with glaciers. They're ever changing. So we had to shoot that in another cave, and we found another one that's close to Reykjavik, and all right, fine. And I definitely thought that would be kind of walk in the park. But that became this whole other ordeal because as we wanted to start shooting there was a volcanic eruption on the peninsula where that cave is. So there were endless earthquakes, Well, I was like leading up to an earthquake, actually, to a what's it called, eruption. So there were all these earthquakes. So we were not allowed to go into the cave. So we had to wait. So we wait till the midsummer, and then the volcano had started erupting. Which meant that the earthquakes had stopped. So we were safe to go into the cave. And then just going into this deep, deep cave with all the equipment and going far in where we wanted to get those shots became a hugely difficult scene to make, and it doesn't take a lot of screen time, and then it's one of these things that seems simple. And at that time also it was midsummer, so we had to move snow actually from the glacier to bring into the cave and carry with us into the cave. So, yeah.
Well, we are sadly out of time. Before we wrap up, movies coming out August 11th. What do you hope audiences take when they see the film? What do you hope they get out of it?
I hope they get out of it what I got out of when I watched Alistair McLean movies when I was a kid. They watch it with popcorn and a soda, sit back and enjoy themselves.
I think he succeeded. It's a fantastic action movie. It's a great conspiracy thrillers. They don't make them like this anymore. I miss this type of movie, so it was great to watch. The film is called Operation Napoleon. You can see it in theaters and video on demand on August 11th. And this is Óskar Thór Axelsson. Óskar, thank you so much for chatting with us today on Cherry the Geek TV.
Thanks for having me.